Welcome to Game Crunch, your weekly video game podcast. My name is Mike Anastasia. With me today we got Brandon.
Hi, it's me.
We're here talking about games and things.
Games and things.
All right. What are we going to talk about today?
I played 3 games.
Brandon's carrying the podcast today. Da, da, da,
Yeah, seems
da.
like it.
Well, there's no news. No, not a single news. At least
Yeah.
not as far as I can see. After
No,
last
not
week,
really.
with all the inadvertent news.
Mm-hmm. There's more that's come from that now, right?
Yeah, I think the thing didn't leak. The playable thing didn't leak when we were talking last week.
Oh, there's more. There's more. Literally, someone is decoding Spider-Man 2 right now for PC.
Oh, very exciting. Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, that seems like I'm sure some heads are gonna roll from this because that's a pretty massive leak.
And then there was the rumor that someone got Wolverine running on Xbox.
Oh, I did
from
see
the
that
leak.
too.
Mm-hmm. I think that was confirmed false though, and it was just a joke. But people have played it on PC. There's a shit ton of footage too.
Oh, really? Yeah, I mean, I know I haven't looked for it. That's pretty impressive for a game that's, it's still well more than a year away.
The interesting thing is, right, the amount of people, right, that have shown footage of the actual game. The game looks like a very playable state to the point where almost, quite literally, it looks more playable than AAA titles that are actually being released.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes me laugh.
Yeah, I wonder how Sony's gonna handle.
And then there was GTA 5 that leaked yesterday, right? I don't know if you know about this.
No, it was the last couple days. I've read about it. I was just like because I can't remember when it was. I know I've read it the last couple days.
The source code, which allows pretty much you to do anything with GTA 5 leaked. And people uncovered that there were multiple DLCs being made for the game, but all of them have been canceled, supposedly.
I think the other thing that's actually kind of news-ish now that we've gone down this trail, is about the kid who hacked.
Oh my god! Yeah, that guy.
Or Rockstar. Yeah, It was. So I
know I sent you the article. Hacked also.
Oh yeah, Ubisoft hacked.
Yeah, supposedly 900 gigs were stolen, but no one has proof yet. So.
Yeah, no, the Rockstar one was. This just kills me because he's an 18-year-old guy and he was on parole already because he had hacked into, I think it was NVIDIA.
He hacked NVIDIA as well as DoorDash to get food.
Smart idea. So then anyway, so he went to court, for whatever, and the judge was like, hey, are you gonna keep doing this? And he was like, yep. I was like, never gonna stop. And so the judge was like, okay, well, we're going to sentence you to life in jail hospital. And so then he went to jail hospital. And so obviously with a hacker, you're not going to let them have a laptop. So they didn't let him have a laptop, but they let him have his Fire Stick and his cell phone. And so he used his Fire Stick to hack Rockstar and steal the stuff. And it just so impressed me. I'm like, wow, he literally used the bare bones of technology to leverage quite a lot of stuff. Someone should offer this kid a job, try to redirect his skills towards good or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then my theory, right, was I feel like him being, put into a life imprisonment in a hospital prison is fake. That didn't happen. That man's got a job working for the government right now, and he's being put into hiding right now, and they're keeping a close eye on him. That's what I felt like, because that's just that's unheard of. Man leaks information on a video game. Life in a hospital prison. That's what you get, kid. That just sounds like some fucking next level, dystopian shit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Man leaks video game information. Life in hospital prison. That's just, I feel like the crime kind of doesn't really fit the punishment there.
Well, I think there's other issues at play there. I think that I'm guessing without having read like the court stuff, I think they were more concerned about his mental health, and that's why they did it, because it sounds like he had some underlying mental health issues. And like I said, they asked him point blank. They're like, "If we let you out, will you try to be better?" And he was like, "Nope." And they're like, "Okay, well then."
Well, you're staying.
Yep. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that makes more sense.
Um, yeah. So that's where that thing. I do agree though. It'd kind of be like life in prison for hacking, not a normal thing. So, yeah. So, anyways, what else? Anyways, I don't know. Let's move on to what you've been playing. What you've been playing? You got all sorts of games.
I do have all sorts of games. So I may have mentioned before about wanting to play Wanted Dead. Because it is okay. So I had heard Wanted Dead described as this, right? Wanted Dead was described to me as a Suda 51 game
Okay.
if he had very little talent and smoked crack.
Okay.
After playing Wanted Dead and almost finishing it, I'm literally on the last chapter. I agree. This game, I do not know if it is meant to be intentionally bad or if it's just like impressive because of what they've. It is such a competent game at times, and then at other times it is batshit insane, makes zero sense, and makes me scratch my head on how did this get through like testing. First of all, the main character, the way she speaks, right? It has all the line delivery of like watching paint dry. It's not even like a case of like, oh, your voice acting is bad. It's like, oh, your voice acting is uniquely bad. Like the Room levels of bad. Like you have to not understand what you're saying levels of bad while reading your lines. Like we're literally talking about a character that is the main character you stick with throughout the entire story, and her line delivery is so weird that it's like an alien speaking for the first time in English, and it doesn't make any sense as to why it is done that way. And while we were playing like the game, and while I was streaming it to my friends, they were like, I cannot figure out for the life of me if this game is supposed to be bad because haha we wanted to make something weird and unique, or if this game is just like poorly made because they didn't have the funding and they didn't have the budget and they didn't have the talent to do what they wanted to do, so they just tried really hard and it just didn't quite work. And we can't figure out which one it is. And I still have not figured out if this is done on purpose or not while playing this game. This game, right? I'm going to say this right now. Mark my words, right? Mark my fucking words. This game will become a cult classic in like 3 to 4 years. Easily. This is a game that it is so weird. I'll give you a small example. All right? All of this happened in like one cutscene, right? So, I fought a person after running through an office building, after being told by my police person, like the head of police, the police chief in my department, to not go in the building. My character was just like, alright everyone, suit up, we going. And it's just like, oh, okay, I guess we're going in. All right, so we go in, we go through the entire building. The building's, like, design makes no fucking sense, because first it's like a normal office building, and then as you go up floors, it became like a museum for Japanese stuff, and it had, like, walls that were made out of, like, you know, like tatami mats and all that other shit and all that stuff, like bamboo walls and tatami mats, and it became increasingly more disjointed as you went further into the office building. And at one point I like broke the glass of this like this showing this ancient katana, and I just took the katana as a police officer, lieutenant I think is who I was playing as. And I just used that for the rest of the game. I literally just use a katana for the rest of the game. This game's trying to be like Ninja Gaiden and kind of like Devil's Third and also kind of like a third-person cover shooter, all at the same time.
Okay.
So we fight, and we go through this entire building. I get towards the end of the chapter, and the place opens up into like a garden, right?
Okay.
And the garden, before you continue out into this like Japanese bonsai garden, there's a chainsaw there. And I pick up the chainsaw. And
Okay.
I'm now able to kill people with the chainsaw. When you chainsaw them up, a giant red circle appears over their body that just says censored.
Uh-huh.
The game censors itself, but then the second you finish chainsawing them, their body's just laying there in pieces and you can see it uncensored. But when you do the chainsaw attack, it literally shows censored in a big red circle over the body. But then once they fall apart, it's no longer censored. So like it's not actually censored, but it does this thing where every single kill with the chainsaw it says censored, and it censors your chainsaw going through the person. So I'm not sure if they did that because they couldn't animate a chainsaw cutting through flesh and bone, or if they did that just to be cheeky, or what. But it plays this badass like metal music when you pick up the chainsaw. It's like, and then you like fucking when you chainsaw someone, it's a red circle with the censored bar over it, and it just says censored. And I'm just like, okay, that's kind of neat and everything. So I continue fighting through the building. And I thought I was on the top floor, right? Because I've gone outside, I could see the sky and everything. But then I go to another building that's connected to the building and go up more floors until I get to the top, but the top floor is guarded by a giant walker tank that looks like a spider tank from like Metal Gear, and I have to fight the tank, and there's like a very unique way that you fight it. You kill the guys that are like little minions that have grenade launchers, and you take the grenade launcher and you shoot the tank to damage it that way. Very like PlayStation 3 era kind of boss fight shit. And I would kind of describe this game as like the best PlayStation 3 game I've played this year, just in general. And it's so
How many
weird.
other PlayStation 3 games have you played this year?
That's the joke.
Okay.
So after I did that, after we gone through this, the head of the police comes up and he starts bitching at me for going in without permission and everything, and says that we're inciting a riot between the normal humans and the transhumans that are like android people that are like combined between the two. And then it goes from that to singing karaoke after taking a shower, and then eating ramen, and both of those are mini games. And then after I'm done with that, I get a text message telling me that they've installed a new Crane game in the precinct, and now there are Crane games, and in the Cranes games are little figurines of all the characters that I've met so far in the game. So I'm able to like pick out the characters and this, that, and the other and whatnot. And then at one point later on, I end up meeting this one android lady whose name is October, and she has a boss whose name is August.
Okay.
And she might be a bad guy, but we're not entirely sure. But we know she's an android. But then she tells me, how do you know you're not an android? And that sort of thing. Because whatever, who gives a fuck? Just some weird shit. I take like 3 steps outside of the room after the interrogation, and I fall down, and the game goes from a game to like a 10-minute anime now, for no reason whatsoever. It shows a flashback, and it kind of tells us of this other character who may be you from the past, but isn't really fully explained, who ends up having tuberculosis, and when she speaks to the doctor tells her that her insurance won't cover the pills, and is very gleeful about it not covering the pills, and how much money he's going to make off of you dying of tuberculosis. And then you wake up after you've had that past moment, and you're just back to playing the game like normal, in the police precinct where you were at before.
Random.
Yeah, very random. As you're like continuing, they introduce like workers that are like android workers that attack you like pickaxes and everything. It's like, okay, that makes sense. But then there's like ninjas, and then there's like I don't fucking know. This game is so weird that things just kind of happen, and then they're not really explained. And then the actual design decisions don't really make that much sense either. Like, for instance, at one point I was fighting this boss, and she had like an invisibility cloak, like you would see in something like Metal Gear Solid. But I can actually see her the whole time, so it doesn't really work. So I can just aim at her and shoot her forever. But the way that she's designed, every single bullet that hits her makes her go. So like it's like poorly designed in a way where like if I'm unloading on her with a fucking LMG, she's like just like the whole fucking time, and it's like overlapping and getting higher and higher pitched frequency and everything, and it's like, what the fuck is going on? Did you guys even test this before you put it out? And it's so insanely weird because at times the game is so batshit insane that I feel like it's all done on purpose. But at other times, I just feel like they didn't have the talent and they were trying to do something very special. Another example is I go into the chief of police's office in my precinct and I read this note, and then randomly I am in another flashback, but it never tells me it's a flashback. It just shows me walking up to some apartment after reading the note, and then inside the apartment, I find a dead woman, the same dead woman that I just read from the note. So it's like, okay, now I understand. This is just a flashback, but there was nothing showing me that this was really a flashback ever. It was just kind of like cut to you looking the same way as you do in President A, but now in someone's apartment and a dead woman's on the ground, and it's just like not really explained. And then that's when I put two and two together and I was like, oh, okay, this is a flashback. So I see the dead woman and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, breach and clear, that sort of thing. The husband comes out and he's like fucking tweaking hard and he's like, I killed her. And he's like, all right, well, that's enough for me. And then like he tries to attack me and I shoot him in the head. And then I just see a door in the back and it's their kid. And he's sitting on his bed and he's like, did you kill him? It's like, yeah, I shot him in the head. And she's like, oh, okay. Yeah, he killed mom a few hours ago. And you're like, oh, that's horrible. And like, that's your line delivery. That is literally your line. I'm giving it more inflection than this person was. And he's like, are you a police officer? And you're like, yeah, I work for police. And he's like, you don't look like you work for the police. You're wearing sneakers and blue jeans. And you're like, yeah. And then you and the kids sit down and watch cartoons in real time while the father has just been shot by you and the mother is dead and decaying in the other room, and you wait for backup to come.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, this is like super avant-garde. Like, this game is really fucking weird, and I don't know if it's on purpose.
It reminds me a lot of one of Suda's old games. Like,
yeah.
I'm trying to think which one. Flower, Sun, Rain? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Where they were just kind of like very, whatever all the time about everything. Just kind of like whatever. Very like low key, like low energy about anything that happens.
And then like I met this one girl in the precinct, right? And she was like, I'm looking for my cat. I can't find 12
cats.
No, that's that's what you say. You're like, you have 12 of them? She's like, yes, but that's not the point. I can't find 12. And you're like, you can't find all 12 of your cats? And she's like, no, I just can't find 12. And you're like, what are you talking about? And like the character's like, oh, what do you mean you can't find 12? And she's like, 12 is missing. And then that's when you figure out she named her cat 12 and she has 12 cats. And you're like, oh, what about 11? She's like, 11's still here. And then that's when you find out she named her 11th cat 11. So you're like, oh, so you named all your cats. Oh, so you named all your cats numbers. And she goes, no, I didn't. And you're like, what? And she's like, I named them paws, claws, face, jaws. And she like lists like individual body parts of cats. And then she said, and then I gave up about halfway through and named them 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Okay.
And you're just like, this is just something that's dropped on you randomly. Just like you randomly get other things like dropped on you, like out of nowhere. And it's just so weird. Like the girl I was talking about that was the android and everything. Right after you do the interrogation and have your anime moment, you then have this your other person that you work with. His name's Doc. He's like, yeah, we tested the blood sample. She's human. And then you're like, well, she was just telling me she wasn't. so what is going on here? And that's never explained. So like, what the fuck? And then there was another point where, and I'm trying not to spoil too much, but I mean, it's really hard to talk about this game without spoiling some things. But there's like another point in this game where you're being introduced to each one of your team members in the game that you work with. There's a 4-person team. It's you, Herzog, Doc, and I can't remember the other person. But anyway, one of the people that you work with has like taken a vow of silence, and he only speaks in sign language, to which they then give subtitles below, but then the subtitles kind of contradict what the other people think he's saying sometimes. So I don't know if that's like a translation error, because maybe this isn't like an English speaking, like native English speaking team that worked on this or whatever, or what it is, but it sure is something, because you literally have one character that never speaks except through sign language, but the game still translates his sign language as subtitles that appear below him as he's sign languaging them.
Okay. Well, when's this game made? Do you have no clue, or
when was this game made?
No, where or where? Yeah, where?
I do not know where. I do know that this came out last year. No, this year actually, 2023. So yeah, let me see if I can find anything about the says that the headquarters of this studio is in Japan.
Okay, so it could be a Japanese game.
But if you look at the other games that they've made, right? So let me look at the other games that they've made, right? So they've made Valkyrie Elysium, they've made Ninjala, they made Naruto and Boruto Shinobi Striker. Those 3 games I'm going to list right there, they clearly had a team that translated things that knew like English speaking. Each one of them did. We both know that, at least from like Ninjala, for instance, for you, and Valkyrie Elysium and Naruto and to Boruto's Shinobi Striker for me. This just seems to be like an anomaly, like a very weird game that's somewhere that I'm not sure where that somewhere is, to be completely honest.
Yeah, so it could be like a deliberate choice to kind of be like this. Actually, I was thinking, it also reminds me of like Deadly Premonition.
That's what I was going to say. That's why I think this is going to end up becoming a cult classic. This feels very, very much like a Deadly Premonition style game, where the game's entire thing is just being as weird as humanly possible. And I would believe, that's why I firmly believe that this game will become a cult classic in a few years, when like some YouTuber has gravitated towards it and does like a deep dive on the entire ins and outs of the game and everything, and puts up like a fucking 3-hour video or something explaining it. When that happens, this game is going to fucking take off like a rocket, because it is the weirdest thing that I have seen in like so long. Like the gameplay, it's serviceable, it's okay, but it's still got that like that jank that you have from like old PS3 games. Like I'm talking like not AAA PS3 games. I'm talking like, you know, AA or just weird niche PS3 titles. Like I'll give you an example. Binary Domain is like one that I can think of that like comes to mind. You remember that game?
Which game?
It was made by Sega.
No, what's it called again?
It was fuck, I wish I could remember. Maybe it's something else. Wait, I thought it was Binary Domain.
Oh, Binary Domain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so like it's not like bad, you know what I'm saying? But it's definitely different and weird and odd and just kind of like feels disjointed, but like yeah, I don't know. It feels really weird. This game feels like it was taken out of a different dimension and then just placed here in ours. And I'm gonna be honest, you probably already know what I'm about to say. I kind of love this game.
Yeah, I figured.
Like I put nearly 12 hours into it. I know for a fact I'm on the last chapter, and like I've been really enjoying my time with its weird, quirky, odd things that it's done. And it's like the closest to like a random weird Suda 51 game that I've gotten without it being Suda 51. And I kind of dig that. And I think that's why it will become a cult classic at some point in time in the future.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that based on what you're saying.
Yeah.
Seems like something that people would really kind of get into, but it's not going to be until someone picks it up randomly, like in like 5 years, and they're like, "Hey guys, I found this weird ass game to stream."
Exactly. That is exactly what's going to happen. Like recently, you remember Cruelty Squad that I mentioned to you in the
Yeah,
past?
yeah.
The like really weird a popular Twitch streamer got a hold of it recently, and then so did a popular YouTuber, and now that game is fucking blown up, and they just announced the sequel to it after like what 4 years I think it was now. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, that game came out of nowhere, and I loved that game because of how weird and off it was, and now people are just now seeing how good that game was.
Mm-hmm.
I have another game like that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
This was called El Paso Elsewhere. Nick mentioned this last time he was here
Oh yeah, yeah.
during the podcast for Game Awards.
Mm-hmm.
I've played El Paso Elsewhere now.
Yeah.
I'm about 6 hours into it, and that puts me at chapter 20, I think. I have no
Mm-hmm.
idea how many chapters there are, but I've gone through quite a bit of this game. This is also very weird and very strange. But the difference in this one is whoever decided to make this one is very competent and knew exactly what they were doing and made a really fucking good game. So let
Mm-hmm.
me tell you what this game is.
Okay.
And I could sum it up in like 2 words. Max Payne.
Okay.
This is Max Payne if it was made by an indie developer who wanted to be super weird and abstract about it.
Okay.
So the general plot of this game is you are James
Mm-hmm.
Savage. I believe that's his last name. And your ex-girlfriend Janet is actually the vampire queen, and she's about to bring about the end of the world. And it's up to you, who is a bounty hunter slash like investigator slash neo noir kind of like kind of guy that's like, I'm gonna get the shit done whether it's up to code or not. But instead of like fighting criminals and drug rings and yada 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 blah blah blah, you fight werewolves and vampires and stuff like that, and the undead and stuff like that, and that's what you are. This
Mm-hmm.
game is super weird because it starts with you going to either her apartment or the place that she is currently residing at,
Uh-huh.
and each level has you going through different segments that are like segmented pieces of your mind being built up because of your relationship you had with this person.
Uh-huh.
And it at times the place will look like a hotel, and sometimes it'll look like a bathroom or a shower, and sometimes it'll look like a graveyard, and da 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 da. And the world is kind of like mind bending, like it will build itself around you. And all of that would be super fucking cool and interesting if it didn't also have the fucking baddest soundtrack, like the most badass soundtrack I've heard this year. And I have to preference this. It
Okay.
is a very unique soundtrack that I was not expecting.
Uh-huh.
So, you already know, I think one of the best soundtracks of this year is the Bomb Rush Cyberpunk soundtrack because it has all the stuff that makes the game like fit cohesively together, and it's also got like really good tracks that are a lot of fun and bring back the kind of Jet Set Radio feeling to the game. This soundtrack is so different and
Uh-huh.
so weird that it might be better than that one. And let
Okay.
me explain how it works. So you've got two parts of this soundtrack. You've got the weird voices in the back of your head, weird shit's going on, kind of ambient soundtrack. And then you have the gangster rap album, where the rapper is the voice actor that plays the main character. And
Okay.
it's really weird, and it very much feels like it was built specifically for this game. And I'm not sure if it was, but it is so incredibly good. It's like, it's not it's not professional, obviously. It's not a professional album, but it is at the same time. Like, so it is an actual professional album. It's made by this, like, DJ, I think RJ or something, and this person called Lake Savage, who have made quite a few games, soundtracks. And this is the newest soundtrack that they've made. They're not, like, huge that I know of, but they've done some good work in the past, as Nick pointed out in our chat when we were talking about it. But this is so unique because of the way it mixes everything together, and it also coincides with like the gameplay. So I'm gonna try to break down this one track so far that's been one of my favorites, and I've not finished this game. I know I probably still have like another 4 or so hours left, if not more. But I'm going to break down the track that's called Ghost in the Mainframe, which I think is one of the best tracks that they have, at least at the start of the game. There might be some better ones coming up, but right now, this is the one that if I was to be like, you gotta check this shit out, this is the track that I would point people towards. Okay. So this track, it opens up with like a news report, and like a kind of like boob tubey, like CRT kind of TV sound going off in the background, and it definitely sounds like they're doing like some like news propaganda kind of thing going on there. And they're talking about it, and then it goes straight to just random gangster rap where the main character is talking about what's going on and yada yada yada. But the song works so well with the actual game because this song feels very disjointed and out of nowhere, and it's when the game itself starts to become more abstract that this song plays for the first time. Also, this will probably be something I bring up when we get to like best moment for the year, if we do end up doing that again. Because this song and the moment when this happens made this game so unique for me, and made me be like, oh shit, there is something here. This is really interesting what's going on here. And so it's like playing this song, and it does like the gangster rap, and then it goes to this girl, and she's like, I'm the ghost of the mainframe, ghost of the mainframe, ghost of the mainframe. But what the lyrics actually is ghosting the mainframe, ghosting the mainframe, ghosting the mainframe. Like you ghost someone when they send you a message, and you don't actually reply back to their message or whatever. And it's kind of got some connotations in like the actual storyline here. Yeah. At least it seems some like. And it just comes out of nowhere, and it sounds so like Daft Punky while also having like this weird, very indie vibe to it. Which, I mean, it's an indie game, but even the music feels like this weird like background like indie concert you'd go to at like a local club or some shit or whatever. And it feels very cyberpunky and very weird, and it also has this nostalgic vibe to the song as well, which is what it's supposed to be representing, the nostalgia of this guy from his ex-girlfriend that he's now going to try and stop from destroying the world and whatnot, who is actually the vampire queen. So that element of it, if the nostalgic element of it also extends because it plays like AOL stuff at the end. Like AOL dial-up tones. Instant Messenger? Okay. Yeah. Like dial-up tones and all this other stuff and it goes really hard, and it's like really interesting the way that it's done. And also, while all this is going on, the past of this guy and like different aspects of it is like kind of forming around him in this place that it really shouldn't be, and it's like the world is kind of fucking with him, and that's kind of the whole thing with this game. The world kind of constantly fucks with him, and it changes up on you as you're playing it. There's another one where another song plays where it's like saying like in the hole, and it's just continuously repeating that, and there's like a hole in the center of the stage that you're trying to get to, but as you like make the turns to get closer to the center, it just continues extending out forever essentially. So you're going around in a constant spiral, and that's the whole stage. You're going around in the spiral and fighting these enemies each time you make a loop in this spiral, trying to get to the end and like break the pattern that's going on, the loop that's going on, so you can actually make it to the end. But this one song's playing the whole time you're doing so, and it's like super cool. It's like very trippy, and like as you continue going around in the loop,
Mm-hmm.
the world of the like level you're in becomes like more and more decrepit, and like more enemies keep spawning in and trying to stop you from getting there.
Uh,
And generally the world itself feels like it's alive and you're fighting it more so than the actual enemies of the game. And that's like super fucking cool. And then all of the actual gameplay that's there is very Max Payne-ish, where it's like you've got painkillers that you can pick up, which are the ways you heal. You can do the slow-mo dive and activate slow-mo bullet time and stuff like that, and that's the way you actually fight. You have certain guns that you can use. And yeah, and you're fighting hordes of enemies as you try to get from one objective to another. So it's got good gameplay, and then on top of all of that, it's like super abstract and weird and really fun take on the game in general. So yeah, that one's cool. And I understand now why Nick was like, "Hey, have you played this yet?" And I was like, "No, I want to." And now that I have, yeah, it's super good.
yeah, the song definitely is. I agree. Very Daft Punky, I
Hmm.
would say. Very much so. It's a good analogy for it.
So the last one I'll talk about before I let you talk about nothing, because I don't see anything on your list here actually.
I'll make
Um,
something up.
oh, okay, that's good. That works. Is RoboCop.
Okay.
This was also gifted to me by a friend.
Uh-huh.
This is RoboCop Rogue City is the name of it.
Okay.
This is really good also. And I haven't gone far enough into this one. I'm only like 2 hours or so in.
Mm-hmm.
But to borrow a line from IGN, it really makes you feel like RoboCop. But I mean that in like a not just like, oh, I'm web slinging or that sort of thing. There's like the weight and heft that you get when playing as the character RoboCop. So like for instance, you can't jump in this game.
Okay.
And as you like walk through the scenery, the crime zones, all this, that, and the other, where the shootout sections, all that stuff, um, you have this real weight to you. Where like it's not like you're sprinting, like you're playing a Call of Duty game or something like that. You feel like a hulking machine going down those hallways. You feel like really powerful because of the gun that you wield. You feel like really strong because you can like grab an enemy and throw an enemy into another enemy and cause him to make the other enemy explode from the sheer force of you throwing a man into another man.
Good.
And yeah, it's just really fun to play. It's like pseudo open world in some cases. So, for instance, after the first stage, which sees you having to again climb to the top of a building, and this time you're stopping like these terrorists that are taking hostages and kidnap this guy like live during a recording of the news and like injected him with this drug called nuke and caused him to overdose on television and then took hostages and yada 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 all that good jazz.
Mm-hmm.
You go inside and you're like ascending the floors and you really do like feel like super powerful while you're doing so. And like your right click isn't just like an aim down sights or anything like that. Instead, your right click scans all the enemies that are in your vicinity
Mm-hmm.
and it gives you like all the information you need, but it also like highlights them so you can like see them behind um like walls and shit like that. So you actually feel that that like the technology based element of RoboCop as well, where it's not just, oh, you're super powerful, you've also got these other added perks of being a fucking robot basically.
Okay. As you should.
Yeah, and there's been some really cool elements here. Like the last thing I did was I investigated a murder of this prostitute. And when you investigate it initially, you like come up to the crime scene and you like have to zoom in on the body and find like clues for what's going on. And then you like track down the last person they were seen with and you investigate by like interrogating people and talking to them and finding out essentially who could have done this.
Uh-huh.
And there's some really neat like story elements here. This game appears to take place between RoboCop 2 and 3. possibly retconning.
Is it bad I didn't even know there was a third RoboCop?
Well, that's the thing. I think this game's trying to retcon away the third RoboCop movie, which is not good. Like, it's not a good movie. It's just not a well-made movie. That's what I'm saying. Like, it has that the third movie syndrome. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, good popular movie, we made a third one. It's kind of mid to bad in most cases, and this game feels like it's kind of retconning how bad that was and making its own RoboCop 3, and it's actually really fucking good so far. So this one is the one I've spent the least amount of time with, but it looks like incredible. Like the actual graphics, which I'm gonna show you in our general chat right now, to this game is like super clean. It looks very realistic the way like the lighting and everything is done in this game. And just in general, like even like the reflections of your visor and stuff, and like the ray tracing and all that good jazz that they have in this game, it's really good, and it actually runs incredibly well on PC, which is where I got all these games. And yeah, it's a very interesting game. It feels like there's again a lot of effort put into this by a studio that probably didn't have a lot of budget, and what they've done here is like very, very good. So like sometimes the cutscenes are a little meh. They're all right. They're fine. They're passable. But like the actual open world and the actual gameplay and the exploration and whatnot, is what makes this game like really, really good. So yeah, there you go. That's it. That's what I got to talk about.
Okay. What do I want to talk about? That's a good question. Let's see. Let me think back to games that I've not talked about in a while that I like that just have not come up. What is a good game from the past?
If you don't have any games to talk about, what did you get for Christmas? What did you do for Christmas? Give me some info.
Exciting.
Nothing exciting. You got nothing for me there either.
Nothing exciting. Visited family. Visited family. The most exciting video game related thing I got was eShop gift card.
Oh, okay. You gonna buy anything with it?
Eventually. I got.
Okay, do you have any plans on anything to buy with it? I guess that should be my question.
Well, I'm planning to use it on vouchers, I think is my plan.
Yeah.
Because those are always handy, but then it's like, well, which games do I want to use it on? The next one will be that, what the fuck is it called? We talked about last week. Another Code Remastered.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned that last week.
Yeah, because the demo's out for that. And it is a $60 game, so I'm like, okay, I'll drop it on that. That makes sense. So that was that. The rest of them, I guess, honestly, not.
What else did you get alongside it? Since there's a voucher and that gives you 2 games.
Oh, which would be the other game? Probably the next $60 game is going to be the Princess Peach game. I know, really hitting the top dollar games with it.
I feel like you should probably just wait until better games. Maybe you'll put Paper Mario on there, and maybe you should wait for that. That's why.
But then I'll just buy another set of vouchers. Because then I'll probably do like Luigi's Mansion 2, because that shit's going to be a $60 game, even though it was a $40 3DS game. And then Paper Mario. So I'll probably use it on both of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it will get used. Like, it will get used. That's not the issue. It's just kind of more of, what it is. Because, even I'd end up buying those games anyways, as long as they're not complete shit. Another Code, like, I know what I'm getting 50% of it, because I played the first game when it came out here. I never played the remake, or not the remake, the sequel that didn't release here. So that's exciting. And then the Princess Peach game. I always like platformers. I'm sure it'll be fine. So I don't know. I'm not hyped for anything this year right now. So
I am, but it's not Twitch related.
I don't. Is there anything? What is coming out next year? Well, there's the Final Fantasy game. Yeah, we talked about this. When the Game Awards. Yeah, I mean, there's Final Fantasy, there's like Hades 2. I mean, there's stuff coming. There's nothing I'm like super excited about, which doesn't mean anything. You know, there will be exciting things
Like
next
a
year.
Dragon Infinite Wealth for me, Tekken 8. You might be interested in the Apollo Justice Ace Attorney trilogy, which comes out January 25th.
How do I feel like I saw reviews for it already?
Maybe Japan got it early.
Maybe.
I'm not really interested in this one, but Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is February 2nd. Persona 3 Reloaded is also February 2nd. That one I am interested in.
More excited for that, I would say. But still not like like I said, I'm just not super excited for it right now.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, February 29th. I'm so excited for that one.
Which one? Oh, yeah, because it's like a retro.
Final Fantasy VII Remake too.
Yeah. So I mean, that stuff's like I said. There's stuff I'm like.
Elydian Chronicle, 100 Heroes, which is the game from the creator of Suikoden that got kickstarted. That comes out in April.
Yeah. That Beyond Good and Evil remake. I'm excited for that, or remaster,
eventually,
or whichever.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, we know that's coming, but like I said, I don't know. I'm just kind of very tepidly excited for next year, but not like strongly excited for anything. So, and like I said, I know there will be exciting stuff. The Switch 2's coming out next year, for sure.
Yeah.
So that will be exciting, but I don't know. I don't know what there is. Trying to think. What is? I feel like I like to talk about just kind of like hidden gems that I've played before that we know we never talked about on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm reaching.
Yeah, and that's what I'm reaching for in my head because I know that there's some games that I've played that we have not talked about either ever or in some time.
About something you didn't talk about in 2023.
I know, that's what I'm trying to think of. So you know what? Here I'm gonna go back to one of my old lists. Let's see, games of. What are my older lists? I have older.
I actually have my top 10 list already made, but my honorable mention is longer than my top 10 list.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
The thing is, my honorable mention, depending on if I finish them in time, could be in my top 10 list instead. And that's the thing.
Your what?
Some of the things in my honorable mentions could move to my top 10 list depending on if I finish them in time.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because like I said, RoboCop's actually like really good so far. It's very different from your normal games being released nowadays. It's kind of got like some Fallout vibes and some like Batman vibes with like the investigations and stuff like that, but then it's got like skill trees and it's got a pseudo open world, but it has an interesting story, but it ties in with the movies a lot, and it's very different from what we're seeing nowadays, and it definitely has that like we really care about the source material feel to it. So that's like super neat.
Trying to find, I have my like top games of like years, and I don't know why the oldest one I can find right now is 2018. Let me see if there's anything interesting on there. That's not something that we haven't talked about in a while. No, 2018 sucks. No, it's not a horrible year.
What did you notice about 2018?
Oh no, it's not anything it's not. I mean, my top 10 list was Xenoblade 2 expansion, God of War, Smash Brothers Ultimate, Let's Go Pokemon, Splatoon 2 expansion, Detective Pikachu, Civ 6 expansion. I mean, it's a shitty year for my top 10 list. Diablo 3, Captain Toad, and Hyrule Warriors. Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of bad.
Yeah. Yes, it is. So it's not super exciting. I mean, 2019 is better, but not exciting. I did see. I don't know why. I don't even remember where I came across this. Reddit, maybe? I don't know. I did see because Ring and Fit Adventures here on a different list. I saw someone made like some weird, like I don't know what to call it, like fanfic, like adult story regarding Ring
What
Fit
the
Adventure.
fuck?
People come up with things for everything. I think that's the real that really that should have not been surprising that someone was there and thought of something like that. But I was like, nope, not a game I would have ever expected that from. Um, so there's that. You know, I wonder if it's in here. Oh, it might be. Hold on, please hold. Let me look at this.
Okay.
Like I said, I wonder if I just had it in my email. Games 20. Oh, there we are. Games of 2014. Much better. Found a list. All right. Games of 2014. Sunset Overdrive. Excellent. We just talked about this game now.
Definitely great.
Mario Kart 8. Excellent. We've talked about it for the last 10 years, though. So nothing exciting on there. South Park Stick of Truth. Excellent.
Yeah.
I did watch South Park put out a new special
my God.
this week.
Hold on. There it is. South Park Stick of Truth. Good thing you brought that up just now. My friend wanted me to ask you this for the longest time, and it's never been something that I could bring up in conversation until just now.
Okay. I don't know where this is going.
South Park Stick of Truth, a JRPG.
No.
So you would think that.
Not.
You would think that, but most people say that it is indeed a JRPG.
Who the fuck calls it a JRPG? The J stands for Japan.
So, because the general consensus now is that a Japanese RPG is not one that specifically comes from Japan, but it has the modern sensibilities of what made the original JRPGs, such as, you know, the Final Fantasy JRPGs, the turn-based combat JRPGs, the constant progression, the random encounters, the this, that, and the other, and everything. And in some cases, actual Japanese studios agree with this. This has been a thing going on for, I'd say, like the last 6 to 10 years. It's kind of been like an evolution of the term JRPG. And yes, I know the J does stand for Japan, but they're now trying to say more of it's not specifically that it came from there, but that it uses the same kind of gameplay mechanics as the ones that came before it that were JRPGs.
I'm still in camp 100% no. 100% no.
See, I was thinking that too, right? And then we went down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
Because there are several games that are not JRPGs, right? But if we go by your definition of it's an RPG from Japan, then that opens up the floodgates. So, another JRPG from Japan based on your definition, right? Hold on. I gotta get the specific list again. So I know one of them right off the top of my head, and that is like the Souls games, like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, fuck, why can't I think of the other ones? Like Elden Ring, those things. Those would be JRPGs. Would you consider those JRPGs?
Yeah, they're RPGs that are made in Japan.
Okay, so you're going to stick to that, right?
Yeah, 100%. Because my reasoning is this. This is my thought. So I understand what you're coming from because they're like, oh, you know, whatever. But the acronym is, Japanese RPG. So it's made by a Japanese developer. It's an RPG. So anything that's an RPG and made by a Japanese developer falls in that camp. The debatability with the games that you mentioned, they're not as strictly like RPG in some senses. Some people will classify them, more like the Game Awards did. I think where do they stick them? Like action adventure a lot of times. I don't remember where they stick them. But if you're looking for I feel like we have better terms to describe kind of like what you're looking for. Like if you're looking for like turn-based RPG, like that's that's a better way to kind of like parse those out, or action RPG, or something like that. But when you're using like a region where it's made, like that is, I feel like that's hard. Like it doesn't matter like what, if it is an RPG and it comes from that region, that'd be one thing. If you use the term, like, instead of using JRPG, if you were like, like I don't know, Japanese like or Japanese inspired RPG, sure. You could maybe I might let you use that term for like South Park, like that, that little bit more appropriate, I suppose. But to be like Japanese RPG, like no, hard no. I don't know. I guess it's like the whole like champagne thing. Like I don't know. I don't like people calling like shitty ass brute like champagne. Like that is not champagne. That's sparkling bullshit. That's what that is. So I don't know. Anyways, continue your thought.
Okay, so here's one, right?
Mm-hmm.
By your own admission just now,
Okay.
Secret of Evermore, which is a game
Mm-hmm.
that is the sequel, or was in the same universe as Secret of Mana from the Super Nintendo, is not a JRPG.
Secret of Mana sequel is not a JRPG.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with the game. Why is it not RPG? Is it not RPG or is it not made in Japan?
It is not made in Japan. It was made by a studio of Squaresoft that was moved to the US. So even though they were making these games that are like some of the Final Fantasy games would not be considered JRPGs because the industry, like their location at that point in time, even though they were Japanese developers, was not in Japan and was in the US.
Wait, were the developers Japanese?
Yes.
Like 100%.
Yes. But they were RPG. In... How is it a Japanese RPG if it's not from Japan? It's literally from the US.
It's made by Japanese people.
Okay, so now it doesn't matter where it's made. It matters who makes it.
Well, I mean, that's the intentions behind that thing anyways.
Shall I show you the Japanese people that worked on South Park and the Stick of Truth? Because I knew this was coming up, and I'll go ahead and roll this back into that then.
Okay,
because
see.
that's the thing. That was the whole thing at the end, because that was the thing that surprised me the most. A lot of Japanese people have worked on JRPGs or RPGs outside of Japan for different games and different things and that sort of thing. A lot of different Japanese people have worked on non-JRPGs as well that are made outside of Japan, or like indie reboot RPGs, so like the ones that like get kickstarted and this, that, and the other, but the main dev studio is not in Japan, but they're making a JRPG, but it's being located and developed in the US or in Europe. So do you call it European RPG? What do you call something like The Witcher? Is that a Polish RPG? Why is it specifically JRPG?
Western RPG is usually the term that's used if you're going to like clarify.
So yeah, like I think it was Final Fantasy. Fuck, which one is this?
Final Fantasy. Fuck. Yep,
Final Fantasy 9. Final Fantasy 9 is not a JRPG then.
Why?
Because, like we were talking about just now, it's not made in Japan. But if you actually are now changing it from being originated in Japan to having Japanese people work on it, then that opens up a whole nother can of worms.
I don't know. Like I said, it's tricky. Like when you go to clarify these things down, the better term is just to describe what type of RPG it is.
But then if you describe what type of RPG it is, and you use the term JRPG to describe anything, then that comes back to being that South Park and the Stick of Truth is a JRPG.
Like I said, that is not a good term for it.
So you want to abolish the term JRPG then, and then no JRPGs exist.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think it's a great term to begin with. I mean, when you're talking like you say, when you have these region-based things, JRPG is not.
So then, if you just made it, I do agree, because it doesn't work anymore, because
and it really doesn't tell you much
meaning
about
has
what
changed.
It is.
Its meaning has literally changed. Like that's just the long and short of it. Like even when Japanese developers are being like, yeah, it doesn't mean that anymore. That's when you're like, okay, well, it's not a game that's originating from Japan. It just has this certain style. But then when it has that certain style, then you're like, oh, well, South Park has this certain style. And then people are like, that doesn't count. And it's like, why not? It's doing the exact same thing as these other things. It's like, well, yeah, but there's no but. It's just, yeah, you're right. So if I go by that definition, it is. But if we go by the other definition of it has to originate from Japan, which that was the initial definition of JRPG. Not the people that worked on it were from Japan, but the game came from Japan.
Yeah, and
That
that's
was the
what it should
definition
be.
of JRPG. Then several Final Fantasy games are not JRPGs
Well, then
because there was a
maybe the
studio that
term
worked
should
on
be
them in Hawaii.
maybe the term should be more Japanese owned company.
Oh, so then then that automatically is just a way to make Final Fantasy a JRPG again, even though it's technically not. I mean, I see what you're doing. You're trying to get around it
again. No, this is like what you do in what was that game, The Witness, the one where you're on the island and it's got all those weird puzzles, and you make up rules in your head about how you think things work, and then you find out that you were close but not quite, so you have to tweak the rules a little bit to make it work.
Make it work.
Yeah, it's that kind of idea. Like, it's like, okay, well, I thought I had the rules right when, we had set this out, as games from Japan. But then obviously that rule is not right because it's like, oh, but what about this game? Well, we had to tweak that rule a little bit. Okay, but what about this game? Well, I would tweak this rule a little bit more. So yeah,
so your new definition of JRPG is a game that was made primarily by a Japanese staff that has Japanese like connotation, like the style of RPG where it's like turn based and yada 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 blah 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 blah. That's your new rule that you've made.
It's got to be primarily made by a Japanese staff and by a Japanese company.
Okay.
It's like not and or. It's got to be and. It has to have both. So, because that way it will exclude Stick of Truth. Like, this is the thing.
No matter what, you just do not want it to be Stick of Truth. That's the long and short of it.
South Park is a hard no. It is not a JRPG. It is a turn-based RPG. You can go a turn action RPG, or you could even go with it is a Japanese-inspired RPG, but it is not a Japanese RPG.
But if it was 100%. A Japanese-inspired RPG, then that would go back to being a JRPG because
that would be a JIRPG. Yeah, it's a JIRPG. It is not a JRPG. 100%. And
this is the kind of conversation I thought was going to happen when I brought this up.
Yeah. It's good. It's a good question. But yeah, I mean, but I think that is one of those things. Is like, you have those rules, and like I said, I think really the moral of the story is those terms are outdated. Like Japanese RPG and Western RPG, like there's a lot of blending between the two. We have better terms to define RPGs these days. Because if you were like, hey, it's a Japanese RPG, and then
can I just
you get something like.
If you abolish the term Japanese RPG and just change it to turn-based RPG, then that still means at the end of the day that Final Fantasy and Stick of Truth are the same kind of game.
No, that's fine. I mean, like, really, like Stick of Truth.
They're the same genre.
Stick of Truth, to me, is the same as Paper Mario, like classic Paper Mario, like Mario RPG. Like I view those as like. Same genre, same style of gameplay. So I don't disagree with that at all. Like that, what you said is a true statement. My breaking my line is when you're like Japanese RPG. When you like literally go and be like Japanese RPG, and it's like this is Matt and Trey Parker were very involved in that game. It was Ubisoft, which is. I don't know, primarily like a Western developer, and obviously you're right. It did take a lot of inspiration from classic, like RPGs. Like I said, it literally plays like Paper Mario, with like South Park elements in it. So yeah, I don't disagree that those are same games in terms of like how they play. But my line is when you try to define like. What region it is, and it's like no, that's but it was a game that would also feel weird calling it a Western RPG, but like I would say by that kind of imaginary definition that we have, probably would fit that bill, but I would feel more comfortable with that than JRPG, but I really don't like it for either. So, if
I
that
see.
makes sense.
Yes.
Where do you fall on the spectrum?
I don't fucking know. Because depending on someone's definition of what it is,
Mm-hmm.
then like yeah, it's actually is a JRPG, depending on your definition. So
Yeah.
if it's the like if it has the sensibilities of like Japanese RPGs, then yeah, okay, cool. But like if it's like no, it has to specifically originate from Japan, then you actually remove so many good JRPGs because of the fact that there was the Square Enix Squaresoft Fallout where they went to different companies to continue their work as they
Mm-hmm.
were having that happen, and yeah, not really so good. And that's a problem because it's like um I don't want Final Fantasy 9, which is a really good Final Fantasy game, to not be a fucking JRPG.
Yeah. And that's why we're, when you were telling me this thing, we're like, oh,
But I
that
also
rule's not right then. So
yeah, yeah. I also don't want the Soul series to be a JRPG because they're fucking not. They're not. They may have come from Japan, but they have their own rules and this, that, and the other, and it's not turn based and yada 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 blah 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 blah. So if anyone's saying like, oh well, if you count this, then that means that this is a JRPG, and it's like that's just not right.
yeah,
Even
I mean,
though
really, like
it is.
in my head canon, and
Mhm,
like, I guess like if someone had said like, oh, it's a JRPG,
mhm,
my inclination would be that the game is anime-esque or like animated, like not like hyper realistic graphics, like something that's more like cartoonish, um, with turn-based RPG, kind of like that, not so much action RPG. Um, so like that's kind of where it is. But like I said, I think the problem is that term worked well in the 90s. It doesn't
mhm.
work well 30 years later. So you really have issues kind of hammering those things out, um because what's coming out of Japan these days, they've taken a lot of stuff that was popular in Western RPGs. They've taken a lot of more genres and added RPG elements to them, so it's not as clear cut as it was in the past. So um like I said, the term JRPG not as clearly defined as it used to be, because like Japanese RPG, like I said, when you say it like that, it really should be an RPG that is originated in Japan or from like a Japanese studio.
Mhm.
Um, and I think kind of have to. I don't even know. Publishers kind of gets questionable too. So you have to be kind of very careful about where that line is drawn too. Like it's it's not like it used to be. Like I said, there's better terms that we have to define RPGs now. So I don't use JRPG. I think I don't use JRPG like to define something unless it's very like quintessential, like if I was like, oh, Tales of Phonia, like that might be a game where I'd be like, yeah, it's a JRPG. Yeah, that one, very anime, very classic, very classic esque RPG. Um, but you even think about stuff like modern Final Fantasy. Like would you consider like the brand new like Final Fantasy stuff like JRPGs? Like I feel like that's even starting to get more questionable in that definition because they're not like they used to be either.
Yeah.
So yeah, it gets, like I said, that line is drawn. I mean, I guess there's also the possibility too. Maybe it's one of those weird things where we have two definitions for the same phrase. It's like, are you talking about a RPG that originates from Japan, or are you talking about those kind of classic turn-based anime
I
RPGs?
wouldn't consider Tales of Symphonia a classic turn-based anime RPG.
I mean, it's not turn-based, but it's still.
It's not. So it wouldn't even fall into JRPG. It would just be an RPG, which
But
would
it's
then
still a
put in
very.
this.
But it's weird though because the Tales of games have been around since the 90s as well.
Yes.
Not turn-based, but still very RPG, like
Yes.
very RPG. So, uh, like I said, that line gets like weirder and weirder the more you try to draw it down. So I said, I don't know. I guess abolish JRPG.
Just so
Or
you
go
can be
with like,
right?
no, not so I could be right. I mean, this
It's
is
so
not.
South Park won't have a chance to be called one, right? That's the real reason.
I don't care where you put that definition. South Park is never a JRPG ever. Like that is like I I I can't even imagine a definition where you would make it work. Like it'd be like it would have to just be like literally like a cartoon turn-based RPG. And then
Because if you consider, like, I already explained where it would work and where it actually makes sense, and where I would say yes, it is a JRPG, is if you were take Japanese style RPG, which is what people say JRPG means now, where the
yeah.
term has like advanced to, you would then take South Park Stick of Truth because of its turn based, because of its random encounters, because of its leveling system, because of its magic system and this, that, and the other, and because it's designed to feel so much like one of those kinds of games, it would be a JRPG in that sense of the word. If you were not counting it as being specifically from Japan.
I hate it, Brandon. We're never doing it.
But it's right.
No, I don't
It's
disagree.
right.
I mean, I agree. Like I could see how people would get to that.
Mm-hmm.
But like fundamentally it's wrong and I could never agree to it. It's I can't wrap my head around it. It's one of those things. It's like I don't know. There's math things like where you can be like, yeah, things could be like this. I'd be like, yeah, but that's wrong. Like it just doesn't. Something's not right. Like it just doesn't mesh. Like this is not a good way to define things. Things need to be redefined if you start getting into weird shit like that. I feel like it happens in science, like a bit. Like I feel like it happened in like biology when they were trying to like classify like different species, and they're like, oh yeah, this is. I'm trying to think of a good example. Like I feel like they were like, oh, like this is a turtle, and they're like, no, it's not a fucking turtle, but they're like, it has a shell. Oh yeah, no, there was species like that. I'm trying to, because you have those kind of like there's species where it's like they've evolved from like different lines and they're very similar. Like it's kind of like daddy long legs being a spider kind of thing. It's like, but it has 8 legs, but it's like, but it doesn't fall in the definition of spider. I don't remember why, but it's the same idea. It's like, but it has 8 legs. It eats bugs, but it's like, but it just not what it is. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? You know what I'm getting at? Yeah. So, like, no, 100% we agree. And like I said, if someone else decides to use it like that, that's fine. Like, you do you. Like, I'm not gonna tell people how to be. Not my job. I just would never like I said, in my mind, I will use every other definition to define South Park Stick of Truth than that one. Like that is just it's an invalid. It could be a Japanese inspired RPG, but never like a Japanese RPG.
Okay.
That's it. It's kind of I guess another example is earlier. It's like champagne. Like champagne, that term it's specifically about sparkling wine from the Champagne region of France. And then there are wineries that like make sparkling wines, and they're like it's champagne. Well, it's made the same way. It tastes similarly, but it's not champagne because it's not from the Champagne region of France. It's sparkling wine. They might be the same. They might taste the same, but they're not the same.
So let me give you an example, right?
Yeah.
This is another one that's been like super contentious, where people are like, it's a Western RPG, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Dragon's Dogma is considered a Western RPG.
Okay. I still agree with my earlier thing, where I'd be like, I wouldn't like. It's one of those games where I wouldn't be like JRPG because it doesn't like. If someone was asking me to describe Dragon's Dogma to them, I would not be like it's a JRPG. I might say it's a Japanese RPG, kind of like say where it's come from, but I wouldn't use it in the connotation of like it's a turn-based RPG. I'd be like, yeah, it's more of a, it's an action RPG, from Capcom.
But here's the thing: people describe Dragon's Dogma as a Western RPG.
It could be a Western-inspired RPG,
a Western style RPG.
Western
perhaps?
Style, yeah, I like that.
Wow. So then, what about Japanese style? What about Stick of Truth? Sorry.
Well, like I said, that's fine. Like I said, I'm okay with Japanese style RPG. That's fine. It's my problem is It's whatever's between that J and that R.
Okay.
That's literally
So
it
what you
is.
were saying then, and I quote, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you were to go with that definition,
Mm-hmm.
then a Japanese game can be a Western game.
A Japanese game can be a Western styled RPG,
Mm-hmm. And then
but
a
it can't be
Western
a
styled RPG can, I mean, a Western made game can be a Japanese style RPG.
yeah, but it can't be a.
Okay.
It cannot be a
You
Japanese
know how
RPG,
we've
and it can't be a
just gotten
Western
to
RPG.
this, you know how we have just gotten to this
Mm-hmm.
specific, like, this is the agreed upon stance for you right now?
Yeah, let's hear you break it.
That is what people say a JRPG is, a Japanese style RPG. That is the current definition of JRPG if you look it up.
Okay, well that's
So
reasonable then.
that is the reason why, at the end of the day, people say South Park and the Stick of Truth is actually a JRPG.
I don't agree with the abbreviation, but if that's the connotation, then that's fine.
Yeah, yeah, that's just wild to me. We had to bring it all the way back around, but that's where we end up at
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, language is always evolving. It's kind of one of those things. Like I said, those terms came around from the '90s, and games have changed quite a bit since then. So it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense that like I said, when people are thinking like JRPG, like the term is referring to what they were in the '90s,
Yeah.
not what they are currently.
Yes.
Um,
So I will
and
I will let you know when I had this conversation with my friend, I fought valiantly to make sure that South Park and the Stick of Truth was never named a JRPG. As much as you did, I did. But the more we talked about it, the more I was like, fuck, you're right. and that's I was kind of playing his character for this conversation, more or less. I agree when you just had the whole epiphany where you're like, if it stands for Japanese style and not Japanese specifically,
yeah.
then yes, that makes sense. And that's the
Mhm.
same thing I feel for Dragon's Dogma. Because like you look at Dragon's Dogma, and when you play Dragon's Dogma, the first thought to you is not this is made by a Japanese person. It feels like Lord of the Rings. It
Uh-huh.
feels like some kind of D&D thing. It doesn't feel like your normal Japanese RPG. Which,
Hmm.
if you were using old kind of notation, I think this is the correct term. If you were using old like additives for JRPG, then Dragon's Dogma would actually be a JRPG.
Yeah, like I said, it really depends on the thing. Although I don't.
And so would
Uh,
Pokemon. Pokemon's a
um.
JRPG.
Well, yeah, no, that one is. I don't disagree with that one. That was like 100%. That's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think there is a um beat around the bush on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see.
Yeah,
Let's
but like
see.
Pokemon's so uniquely its own thing
Hmm.
that like even though it's like turn based and it's got the like general feel, I don't sit there and I'm like, oh yeah,
Uh-huh.
I can. Someone that's played Pokemon will easily understand how to play Final Fantasy VII. They're just
Yeah.
not. You
Hmm.
know, if you were like sit them down in front of it and be like, all right, this is this game, and you've played Pokemon before, so you should be okay. And that's not. No, that's not how that works. You know.
Uh-huh. Uh,
Also, if you're using the old definition, that would also make Shadow of the Colossus a JRPG, and I'm not okay with that.
so I guess so. I guess the other question. Well, no, Shadow of the Colossus is an RPG, so I don't think it would
Oh,
even. No, no, there's no RPG elements.
okay, fine.
Don't disagree, but no. Uh, let's see. Da-da-da. Well, I guess the question is though. So I don't know. I think it really depends on just who you're talking to,
Mm-hmm.
really. Because I don't think a lot of people. I don't know. I guess it depends. If you're talking to someone who's been gaming for a long time, probably different than say, have the one definition versus the other. Because I just did a quick search to kind of see where things were, like what it is, and it looks like people would be. It really kind of depends on who's using it.
Yes, but also like some people are like Dark Souls is a Western RPG because of the way it's designed. Uh, and they're like, okay, well then because of the way it's designed, then South Park Stick of Truth is a JRPG.
Well, like I said, it really depends on, the connotation. Like if you're
Hmm.
using it to be like, a Japanese style RPG, sure.
Yeah, because like
Um,
when you say like Western
mhm,
RPG, I'm not gonna sit there and be like, yes, someone that plays Skyrim or Starfield or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
mhm. Yeah.
That's a Western style RPG. I'm not gonna be like, yeah, definitely. They're gonna be the kind of person that would also be like, yeah, South Park Stick of Truth, good RPG. You're not gonna have that overlap, I think, unless of course they're already a fan of the South Park show. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
You're not going to sit someone down that plays Skyrim for fucking 500 hours and be like, "Oh, you should check out this RPG," and then give them South Park and Stick of Truth. They're just going to be like, "What the fuck is this?" You know? Because
No,
it's
that's
not,
true.
and then
Yeah.
that's kind of where it kind of differentiates between is it style or is it, actual place of origin? Because yeah,
Yeah.
then you also wouldn't be like, all right, place of origin, sit a Western developed RPG in front of, like I said, place of origin. Skyrim, place of origin, Western. South Park, place of origin, Western. You're not going to be like these are both Western style RPGs. They're not. They're not both Western RPGs. They're different kinds of RPGs because of the way it's designed.
Yeah. And like I said, it all kind of depends on, kind of what they're. And like I said, I think those terms are outdated. Like I think we have better terms to define like RPGs now. Like,
Hmm.
turn-based or action adventure RPG, those kind of things. Um, and really too, just kind of looking through this, way I kind of see it is, people making comparisons to how we use the terms for food. Makes a lot of sense too. It's like, when you say, hey, are you gonna have Italian food? Like, is
Hmm.
it like what are you are you having like authentic Italian dishes? Or are you having Americanized Italian dishes? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's a
Um,
style. It's not specifically where it's located or the people that are making it. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. So
Like I said,
then,
I agree with that. I still will never call Sick of Truth a JRPG though. I
except it is, and you actually already admitted to it in this episode
No,
until you
I meant
edited it
it's a
out.
Japanese styled RPG, and if someone wants to use that term to describe it, then that's fine. But I said I don't agree with it
But
100%. I
Japanese
never would.
style RPG is the definition of a JRPG.
I don't think that's the definition is still Japanese role playing game. The interpretation is, do you apply it to the style, or are you applying it to the location? And that's up to personal interpretation.
I mean, I wait, hold on.
Uh huh.
JRPG.
Okay.
Japanese role-playing games, commonly known as JRPG, are games that have distinct features from Western RPGs. JRPGs are typically made by Japanese developers, but not exclusively. The term JRPG stands from console RPGs, which defines games like Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy. However, nowadays, since the term JRPG covers a wide array of different RPGs, it cannot really be seen as a genre, but more as an umbrella term. One can say a game is a JRPG if it fits the criteria one would think belongs to a JRPG.
What was that last sentence again?
One can say a game is a JRPG if it fits the criteria one would think belongs to a JRPG.
Yeah.
And it did mention JRPGs are typically made by Japanese developers, but not exclusively. So that
Mm-hmm.
is not the criteria.
But this one, here's another definition for you. What is a JRPG? It stands for Japanese role playing game, and it's essentially an RPG designed and produced in Japan.
But that's not correct. That's not what the term means anymore.
It like you like what was that last sentence again? It depends on what your thing,
Wait,
what you were just reading.
uh, oh, the criteria one would think belongs to a JRPG.
No, what was the whole sentence? What was it for that?
One could say a game is a JRPG if it fits the criteria one would think belongs to a JRPG.
Exactly, one would think. So it really depends. Like I said, it really depends on who's using it.
But it
It's
literally specifically states JRPGs are typically made by Japanese developers, but not exclusively. So if you take that sentence into consideration, then the criteria cannot be that it is exclusively made by Japanese developers.
No, like I said, there is some gray area there.
What the fuck? No, that's
Brandon,
not how that works. Literally,
Brandon,
read
this
your
is
last
exactly
sentence.
how
All
it.
right, let me read 2 sentences ago that says what you just want me to read and twist around in circles is not correct. I read that, and all right, I've given you that information now. So that means what you were trying to say is incorrect. I disagree. What? What? That's not how that works.
I'm just telling you, it's language. It's
You're
just very
laughing because you know
difficult.
I caught your ass.
No, I'm laughing because this conversation is it's we're gonna end up going in circles, and it's not. I don't think either of us, but I think it's just because it's the problem is not everyone 100% agree on this definition. Like this is not like there's not a consensus that's like this is definitively what it is, and people are going to use it differently, just like we use all sorts of different phrases differently in common language. Like there is no wrong or right answer here. It really depends on who's using it and the connotation they have behind it. Like if
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's lots of like, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like it's, if I use, let's I'm trying to think of a not offensive phrase because the offensive phrases are the easiest ones to give an example of. But like I said, people will be like, they'll use this stuff for all sorts of things. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I don't know. Some people would be like, I don't know, like, what are you having for dinner? Italian, and then they'll have like fucking pizza. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's considered Italian food somewhere, but that's not what you would think of as Italian food. You know, like, I don't know. But like I said, it really boils down to however the person's using it. Like I said, there is no right or wrong answer. Like I said, if someone wanted to call Stick of Truth a JRPG, God bless their heart. They're free to do it. Like I'm not necessarily saying it's wrong. I'm saying it's something I would never agree to personally. I will never define that game that way. Um, but if someone was like, if that's how they, if that's the logic that they use to define games, then sure. Like it's not incorrect. Like and just like everything else, clarification through conversation, you're going to get to the point where you're going to be like, oh, okay, I understand what you're going for here. That makes sense. It's kind of like what we did, coming through here. Like it's not necessarily a wrong answer. Like that one definition you read. Yeah, stick of truth would probably fit under that. But from some of the other ones that I see here, wouldn't fit under it. And I agree. Probably more people define it, like you said, that kind of Japanese style RPG as opposed to Japanese origin RPG. But it depends on who's doing it. There are some people who are going to be like, yeah, Japanese origin. Um, so it really all depends. Even if you use the food example, like when we're like, hey, yeah, we're going to have Chinese food. Like, yeah, if you go to a Chinese restaurant, they don't eat any of that shit in China.
Can
But
I tell you the person who said basically we should retire or advance the term of JRPG because it no longer means what we think it means and it has evolved to become a much broader term encapsulating the style of RPG? Can I tell you who said that?
I feel like I said that.
Can I tell you who said that and
Who said
who
that?
started this term? Like
Oh,
the changing of this term. Are you ready?
yeah.
It was Yoshi P.
Who?
Do you really not know who Yoshi P is?
No.
It's the fucking Final Fantasy guy.
His name is Yoshi. I thought it
Y
was. I
O
thought it
S
was.
H.
I
Go
thought
on.
it was the other guy. What's his name? Who's the one I'm thinking of? The one that did the Mega 64 video.
No. So Yoshi, this is why the conversation got brought back up. Yoshi P. He has worked
No,
on.
Sakaguchi. That's who I'm
No,
thinking.
not Sakaguchi. Well, actually, maybe he brought it up too. Actually, I'm not sure. Uh, Most recently, it was brought up by the person that made Final Fantasy 16 as well as 14 and 12
Mm-hmm.
and past games on the what is it? Like the NES, Super Nintendo, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like some Dragon Quest games and stuff like that. Yeah. He was the one that was like, yeah, we should probably just like fucking retire um the term JRPG because it no longer means what we think it means.
Yeah.
That's basically where the whole conversation got brought back up to. So yeah, that's why this happened. That's why this conversation started in the first place.
Well, it makes sense. Like I said, like I said multiple times during this conversation, like if I'm going to use a term to define an RPG,
Mm-hmm.
like Western and Japanese aren't really great because it really doesn't tell you anything about the gameplay
Yeah.
because like I said, it really is kind of like that. Um, Interestingly, looking at the comment is, um, he thinks it's discriminatory. So
By not allowing other countries to be part of that uh genre, is that what you're saying?
nope. He says, "quote For us as developers in Japan, the first time we heard it, it was like a discriminatory term, as though we were being made of fun of for creating these games. And so, for some developers, the term JRPG could be something that will maybe trigger bad feelings because of what it was in the past. It wasn't a
Interesting.
compliment to a lot of developers in Japan. We understand recently JRPG has better connotations. It's being used as a positive, but we still remember the time when it was a negative."
That's true. The like the days of like X Play and stuff like that, where they would
Mm-hmm.
always just shit on any of them, more or less.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
he's
IGN would do the same and whatnot.
Yeah, and he talks about like past media reports, and he said it was like they were compartmentalizing what they were creating into a JRPG box.
I see. I see. That makes sense.
Yeah, so I agree with him. Not a great term, not just
No,
for those reasons, but like the other ones that I mentioned. Like it really
the other
doesn't.
ones that we got to just now, where we were just like, wow, yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah, it's just not a great term for. Like I said, for some people, it paints like a very clear mental image.
Yeah,
But honestly, even if you think about like, oh, it's a Western RPG, like I'd be like, oh, like Skyrim, like, like
yeah,
I feel
that's
like that's much vaguer. Like
yeah, that's.
it's
I
not.
think of like Skyrim or like Mass Effect, that sort of thing when I think of like Western RPG.
Yeah, and
But then
Mass
even
Effect and
that,
Skyrim are
those
even
they're very
drastically different.
different. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
like I would probably well not I would probably I do really like Mass Effect. I played through it. I really enjoyed that game. I don't think I would enjoy Skyrim, so I've never touched it. So
Yeah,
it could vary quite wildly depending on what it is. Um,
Fallout 4,
yeah,
Fallout 3.
this is a great discussion, Brandon. Actually, I think this is very very enlightening.
This is a interesting one.
Yeah, you have had a lot of really good like I don't know what to call them. Shower thoughts. I don't even know where they are. It's just kind of like those, just very kind of like you take these good, seemingly simple questions,
Mhm.
and they're like, oh, there's a lot more layers under here than you think.
Yeah.
But no, that is really kind of good breakdown. And I mean, I think, like I said, I am okay with however people want to use it, and it's however whatever term you think fits the things. It's just it's just like everything. Some people use terms slightly differently, and
Mhm.
just sometimes there might need to be some clarification there, and it depends on how you're using it. But like I said, it depends on what you're using it for. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely.
mhm.
I think it's
Okay.
all just going to really depend on how it's used at the end of the day.
Yeah. Uh, what else do you want to talk about? Anything else?
I've got nothing else. I
Okay.
just thought that one would be interesting to talk about for now. And then
Well,
we're
that's
done.
good. Yeah. Then we're done. You ready to wrap up?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening to us tonight. Don't forget to find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. Oh, and YouTube. We're there.
Yep.
Website game-crunch.com has all our old episodes. If you want to reach out to us, Facebook, or you can send us an email, gamecrunchcast@gmail.com. Brandon,
Hello.
any final thoughts?
No, not particularly.
Okay. Well, that's it. My name's Mike Anastasia. You can find me online on Clash of Paint with Air or your favorite gaming console. And until next week, game on.
Game on. I played games.
Oh, good. I've played nothing.
Damn. That's a shame.
I know. It's a busy week, with Christmas and everything. We were traveling most of the week, so I
Yeah,
had
that
turned
makes
on my
sense.
Switch for like 15 minutes.
We didn't celebrate this year, so I was able to play a shit ton of games.
Yeah.
Like the most we did was like eat some from like some nearby chicken restaurant on Christmas Eve. We got everyone over and we had like some chicken and stuff. And we watched some Christmas movies, but we didn't like um celebrate in the normal sense. Like there's no gift giving or anything like that.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah. All the doctor's appointments last week really kind of got rid of all of our money that we would have had for that, so we couldn't do anything. So
Well, I mean, I think the important thing is you guys are able to, be together
that's
anyways.
true. We watched like Christmas Vacation, which is my
Oh,
mom's favorite Christmas movie. I fucking love that movie also. You ever seen it?
the National Lampoon with like Chevy
Yeah,
Chase.
yeah, yeah, that one.
Yeah, I've seen it. I think twice.
It's very funny. Um, and then watched my favorite Christmas movie, which if you had to guess, what do you think mine is?
Mm, is it like a traditional Christmas movie?
Absolutely not. Although it,
Okay.
it does involve Christmas. A lot.
Die Hard.
No, it's not Die Hard.
Um, I don't know.
It
What is it?
stars a comedian and a bodybuilder.
No, still no idea.
Jingle All the Way with Arnold
Oh,
Schwarzenegger.
that's what I was thinking. I was like, because you said bodybuilder, I'm like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm like, well, it's kind of jingle all the way. But
I
I think
love
you
Jingle
threw,
All the Way so much.
you threw me off because you're like, well, it's not really a Christmas movie, and I'm like, well,
It's not in the normal sense, you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like it shows the like the dark side of Christmas, the shit that people go through to just make so other people are happy, and also when people are shitty and they have to just do whatever they can. Like I fucking
yeah.
love the Santa Claus fight club that they have.
I don't even remember. I don't even know if I've seen that whole movie or not.
So there's one point where he's trying to get a hold. The whole point is that he's trying to get a hold of the figure of Turbo
Yeah, like
Man and
like a
everything.
new toy.
And at one point he goes and like the Santa Claus is like, "Hey, I heard you were looking for a Turbo Man. I got a guy if you want one." And he gets there and they like go to this back alley place where there's like dogs that are chained up and everything, and they get let inside. And then inside there is like an underground smuggling ring slash like counterfeiting operation entirely run by Santa Clauses. And
Okay.
and he gives him the figurine and it's all wrapped up and he opens the box and it's Turbo Man but speaking in Spanish. He's like, it's a bilingual, it's an educational toy. And then like Arnold opens up the box and it just instantly falls apart and he's like, there's some assembly required. And then like then Arnold just gets so pissed and he starts beating the shit out of all the Santa Clauses that are counterfeiting toys. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah, that sounds like pretty funny.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I like that movie a lot.
I said I don't think I ever watched it all the way through. I'll have to do that
You should.
sometime.
It's very good. And then the comedian is Sinbad. Sinbad's the other main character in the movie.
No, I guess I did not realize Sinbad was in there.
Yeah, he's the black guy that's following him around that's also fighting him to try to get the toy every step of the way.
Hmm.
And he fucking is the mail carrier where one of the like most famous scenes from the entire fucking movie is where he threatens to blow up the entire radio station with a homemade explosive device because that's all people send in the mail this time of year.
Oh.
And like he's making a joke. He's not really making a joke, but he's trying to find a way of getting away from the cops. He's like, "Don't come near me. What I have here is a homemade explosive device, and if you guys come take another step, I'll blow us all to kingdom come." And then the police are like, "All right, well, we gotta stand down." And the main officer comes up after Sinbad and Arnold run away, and he picks up the package. He's like, "All right, guys, we've been duped. It's very obvious that this is a bit, and he was just trying to get away from us." And then he opens up the present, and it cuts away to Arnold and Sinbad running off, trying to chase down this car, and the building behind them explodes. He's like, "That was real? There's some sick people in this world. Sick people, I tell you."
That's funny. Not what I would have expected.
It's a good movie. I love that movie. Yeah, and then we watched Katie's favorite Christmas movie also, which was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from
like the
Rankin
classic,
Bass. Yeah, Rankin
the classic,
Bass. Claymation one?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that one.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even think of the last time I've seen that movie, honestly. I'm trying to think which. We usually end up watching at least one of those claymation movies a year. I think what do we have on this year? I think it was. Oh, no, it wasn't A Year Without Santa Claus. Was it the other one? I don't remember which one it was.
Mm.
I don't know. Those are all
Right.
fun movies.